If someone offered you $9,000 a month just to live in their house, would you take the job? No housework, no real childcare, just one rule. Every afternoon from 3 to 5, you have to sit alone in a sealed room, its walls plastered with yellow talismans, while smoke rises from 4 bronze basins around you. At first, you only feel sleepy. Then the dreams begin. A baby crying behind a glowing door, a body that does not feel like yours, a face in the mirror that slowly stops looking like your own. And by the time you realize the money was never meant to pay for your labor, it may already be too late. Because some jobs do not pay for your time, they buy your life. Today's story was told to me by a close friend of mine. Let's call him Kai. Not long ago, Kai came to Chongqing on a business trip, and the two of us managed to meet up for dinner. While we were eating, he told me something that had happened to him. The story was still fresh in my mind afterward, so I wrote it down as soon as I got home. I figured I'd share it with you. Kai has always been one of those people life seemed to treat pretty well. After leaving the army, he stayed home for about half a year with nothing much to do. Later, through someone he knew, he got a job at a domestic staffing agency in the provincial capital. After gaining some experience, he opened his own company, a home staffing agency run by veterans. Technically, it was more of a middleman service than a traditional housekeeping company. But Kai knew exactly what niche he wanted. He specialized in finding nannies, postpartum caregivers, drivers, and live-in staff for wealthy families. The fees were high, but as Kai put it, rich people may be willing to pay, but they also come with more demands than anyone else. You would think hiring a nanny was simple. Can she cook? Can she take care of a child? That should be enough. But the kind of nanny these families wanted came with all sorts of requirements. Some cared about Chinese zodiac signs, Western zodiac signs, and blood type. Some even looked at a person's birth chart. In Chinese fortune-telling, a person's birth year, month, day, and hour are used to calculate fate and compatibility. Some wealthy business families still take this very seriously when hiring someone who will live inside the home. Kai had dealt with clients like that before. At first, he thought it was just another superstition rich people like to indulge in. But after seeing it a few more times, he began to feel that maybe it wasn't that simple. The first time he truly felt something was wrong was the day a client surnamed Zhao came into the office. Everyone called him Boss Zhao. He was in his 50s. He looked like the kind of businessman who had seen everything and trusted no one. His clothes were ordinary, nothing flashy, but Kai noticed the watch on his wrist, a Patek Philippe. Kai recognized it right away. That watch alone was worth around $120,000 to $150,000. Boss Zhao said his family had recently welcomed a new grandson, and he wanted to hire a nanny specifically to look after the baby. Kai followed the usual procedure and brought out a registration form for the client's requirements. Boss Zhao did not hesitate. He took a sheet of paper from his bag and filled the remarks section with line after line of conditions. When Kai looked at it, he nearly laughed. This did not look like a nanny job. It looked like they were trying to recruit a female intelligence agent. There were more than a dozen requirements, but Kai remembered the most important ones. First, the candidate had to be female, between 22 and 26 years old, unmarried, and without children. Second, her height had to be exactly 5 feet 4¼ inches. Not even half an inch taller, not even half an inch shorter. Third, her weight had to stay between about 105 and 110 pounds, with almost no room for fluctuation. Fourth, her blood type had to be A, Rh negative. In China, Rh negative blood is so rare that people often call it panda blood. Fifth, she had to be born on the 7th day of the 7th lunar month in 1992, between 9 and 11 at night. Not the Western calendar date printed on an ID card, but the traditional lunar date used in Chinese fortune-telling. Sixth, She had to have been born naturally, no C-section. Kai stared at the list, completely floored. He had been in the industry for almost a year by then. He had seen all kinds of strange requests, but never anything this precise. He carefully said to Boss Zhao, "Mr. Zhao, aren't these requirements a little too specific? There probably aren't many people in the whole country who match all this." Boss Zhao only smiled. "I know she won't be easy to find," he said, "but money is not an issue. Starting salary, $9,000 a month. Year-end bonus. If she stays for 3 full years, there will be an extra reward. A small apartment." Kai sucked in a breath. $9,000 a month. Work for 3 years and you could basically earn yourself an apartment in a second-tier city. At that moment, only one thought crossed Kai's mind. "Boss Zhao, what about me?" For a second, Kai said, he almost wanted to ask whether the gender requirement was negotiable. For that kind of money, a man starts considering options. Of course, he did not say that out loud. Before leaving, Boss Zhao added one more thing. "Oh, and there's one condition I forgot to write down. After the nanny starts work, she must live in the employer's home full-time. No days off. She will not be required to do housework. As for taking care of the child, the baby's mother and the other household helpers will handle most of that. She will have another arrangement." Kai asked what kind of arrangement. Boss Zhao did not answer. He only smiled and left. After that, Kai began searching everywhere for this person. He posted the information on major job sites, sent messages in industry groups, and even called in favors to check birth records at several hospitals. After more than half a month of running around, he actually found someone who matched. The young woman's name was Xiao Yue. She was from a rural village in Hunan. She had been born on the 7th day of the 7th lunar month in 1992, a little after 9 at night. She was exactly 5 feet 4¼ inches tall, weighed about 108 pounds, had A-type Rh-negative blood, was unmarried, had never had children, and worked as a kindergarten teacher in a small town back home. Because the salary was low, she had always wanted to switch careers and become a nanny or postpartum caregiver. When Kai first contacted her, Xiao Yue thought he was a scammer. In her words, "You're offering me $9,000 a month. You're not asking me to do something illegal, are you?" Kai had to explain over and over again. He sent her the company's credentials, business license, and Boss Zhao's identity information. Only then did she half believe him and agree to come for an interview. Kai was present on the day of the interview. Boss Zhao came with his son and daughter-in-law. The son looked rich. The daughter-in-law looked elegant. The whole family seemed respectable and proper. Xiao Yue, on the other hand, looked like a very honest, simple girl. She had her hair tied back in a ponytail, wore a floral dress, and spoke softly. You could tell she had come from the countryside and had grown up well-behaved. Boss Zhao's daughter-in-law seemed to like her a lot. She held Xiao Yue's hand and chatted with her for a long time, asking whether she could cook, whether she knew how to care for children, what nursery rhymes she knew. Xiao Yue answered everything politely and did very well. But Boss Zhao sat beside them without saying much. The whole time he kept staring at Xiao Yue's face. Kai said that look was frightening. Very frightening. After looking at her face, Boss Zhao asked Xiao Yue to come closer. He examined her palms, then told her to open her mouth so he could look at her teeth. Finally, he had her stand up and walk a few steps.
Xiao Yue was clearly uncomfortable, but she did not say anything. After all, a salary of $9,000 a month was hard to refuse. In the end, Boss Zhao nodded. He said she was suitable. Just like that, Xiao Yue started the job. During her first week at Boss Zhao's house, Kai made a follow-up call, as required by company policy. On the phone, Xiao Yue said everything was fine. The room was nice, the food was good, the family treated her well. There was only one thing she found a little unsettling. Kai asked what it was. Xiao Yue hesitated for a moment, then said, "Every afternoon from 3 to 5, Boss Zhao makes me sit in a room. I'm not allowed to do anything. I just have to sit there." The room was strange.
All 4 walls were covered in yellow talisman paper. There were symbols drawn on the paper that she could not understand. In each of the 4 corners of the room, there was a bronze basin. Something was burning inside the basins, giving off smoke the entire time. The smell was sharp and heavy. Kai asked, "How do you feel when you sit in that room?" Xiao Ye said she could not really explain it. She only felt extremely sleepy. Every time she entered, she would start drifting off. Sometimes she even fell asleep. But when she woke up, she would still be sitting in the exact same position, as if she had never moved. The strangest part was that every time she left the room, her whole body felt light and unsteady, like she had been drinking. Kai did not think too much of it at the time. He told her maybe Boss Zhao had some kind of religious belief or private ritual. Rich people, after all, often had their own beliefs. Xiao Ye did not say anything more, and the call ended. A month later, Kai made a second follow-up call. This time, however, Xiao Ye did not answer. Boss Zhao's daughter-in-law picked up instead. She said Xiao Ye was doing very well and that the family was satisfied with her. She told Kai the company had nothing to worry about. Kai said, "Could I speak with Xiao Ye for a moment? We need to complete a formal service satisfaction survey." But the woman said Xiao Ye was busy and it was not convenient. Kai did not think much of it. First, they were the employer. If they did not want him contacting the nanny directly all the time, that was understandable. Second, he was not calling often anyway. It would not be appropriate for the agency to bother the household too much. Another 2 months passed. At the end of the year, Kai's company held its annual dinner, and Boss Zhao attended as one of their major clients. When Kai greeted him, he casually asked about Xiao Ye. Boss Zhao smiled brightly and said, "That girl is excellent, very capable, hardworking too. My grandson likes her very much." Kai said, "That's good to hear. In that case, could I trouble you to have Xiao Ye call me back? The company needs to conduct a formal satisfaction review." For a split second, the smile on Boss Zhao's face froze, but he recovered almost immediately. "No problem," he said. "I'll have her call you tomorrow." But the next day, Xiao Ye did not call. The day after that, still nothing. Kai called her number. No one answered. That was when he began to feel uneasy. So he made a special trip to Boss Zhao's villa, wanting to see for himself how Xiao Ye was doing. If something had really happened, he would not be able to explain it to her family. When he arrived at the gate of the villa, Boss Zhao's daughter-in-law opened the door. The moment she saw Kai, her expression changed. Then she quickly said that Xiao Ye had already resigned and gone back to her hometown. Kai was stunned. What? She resigned? When did that happen? Why didn't I know about it? Why didn't she tell me? Boss Zhao's daughter-in-law explained, "It was last week. Xiao Ye said something came up at home and she had to leave in a hurry. She didn't even take last month's salary."
Kai's heart tightened. That was $9,000. What kind of person would just walk away from a month's salary like that? It made no sense. He wanted to go inside and take a look, but Boss Zhao's daughter-in-law stopped him at the door. She said the family was entertaining guests and it was inconvenient. Kai had no choice but to leave. On the way back to the office, the more he thought about it, the more wrong it felt. He pulled up Xiaoye's resume and found the address of her hometown. For a while, he considered going there himself to ask what had happened. But then he thought again. What if she really had resigned and gone home? What would he even be doing, chasing after her like that? While he was still hesitating, the situation suddenly changed. 3 days later, Xiaoye called him. Her voice on the phone was extremely weak, thin, almost hollow. She sounded like she had been crying. She told him she had escaped from Boss Zhao's house and was now in a hospital back in her hometown. Kai quickly comforted her. "Take your time," he said. "Tell me slowly. What happened?" Xiaoyue said, "Kai, I swear, the thing I regret most in my whole life is going to work for that family. These past 4 months, that wasn't living. That wasn't a life a human being should live." Kai hurriedly asked her what had happened. Xiaoye said that ever since she entered Boss Zhao's house, she was locked inside that room, covered in yellow talisman paper every afternoon from 3 to 5. At first, she only felt sleepy, but later, she began having strange dreams. In the dream, she was always standing in a pitch-black place. In front of her was a very bright door. Beyond the door, there seemed to be a child crying. She wanted to go over and look, but her feet felt as if they had been nailed to the ground. She could not move at all. And as time went on, the dreams became clearer and clearer. She realized she was not standing outside the door. She was standing inside that child's body. Every movement the child made, she could feel it. When the child turned over, she felt herself turn over. When the child kicked his legs, she felt herself kicking too. It was as if her soul had been forced into that baby's body. When Kai heard this, his scalp went numb. He asked Xiaoye, "Do you know who that child was?" Xiaoye said, "Of course I do. It was Boss Zhao's grandson. Every day at 5, when that room was opened, I could hear a baby crying in the next room." The feeling was hard to describe. Whenever the child cried, Xiaoye felt miserable. Not just uncomfortable, sad. So sad that she could not stop herself from wanting to cry too. And then, things became even more disturbing. Xiaoye said that after she had been at Boss Zhao's house for about 3 months, her body started to break down. When she worked as a kindergarten teacher, she had always been very healthy. She rarely even caught a cold. That during that period, her hair began falling out. She could not sleep. She had nightmares every night. The most frightening moment came when she looked in the mirror one day and realized her face had changed. Her features were still hers, but something was off. The way her eyes looked back at her, the way her mouth seemed to rest when she was not speaking, even the expression on her face. It was not quite Xiaoye anymore. It looked a little like Boss Zhao's daughter-in-law. That terrified her. That very night, she wanted to pack her things and leave.
But then she discovered that her ID card and phone were gone. She went to ask Boss Zhao's daughter-in-law about it. The woman said she had put them away for safekeeping. Then she smiled and told Xiaoye to relax, stop overthinking, and live there peacefully. Only then did Xiaoye realize she might have been trapped. But what could she do? She wanted to contact Kai, but she had no way to reach the outside world. Kai said, "I called you several times." Every time, Boss Zhao's daughter-in-law answered. Xiaoye thanked him several times, then continued. "I held on for almost another month. Then I finally got a chance to run." That day, Boss Zhao's family went out to attend a wedding banquet. Only Xiaoye and another nanny were left at the house. While the other nanny went to the bathroom, Xiaoye climbed over the front gate and ran. She ran barefoot for 3 whole blocks before she found someone willing to lend her a phone so she could call the police. After the police arrived, they helped her retrieve her ID card and phone, then sent her to the hospital. After examining her, the doctor told her that many of her physical indicators were seriously abnormal, especially her hormone levels and nervous system. They did not look like those of a healthy woman in her 20s. They looked more like those of an elderly person in severe decline. The doctor asked her what she had been through. Xiaoyue said, "I didn't dare say anything. Kai, I was afraid if I told the truth, no one would believe me. They might just think I was mentally ill and lock me up. You see stories like that online all the time." As she spoke, Xiaoyue began crying. She said, "Kai, is my life ruined? Every night I have the same dream. I dream that child is crying, and I cry with him. I cry until I wake up, and my pillow is soaked. I feel like my soul was left behind in that house. No matter what I do, I can't get it back." After hearing all of this, Kai went quiet for a long time. What was he supposed to say? He had been a soldier. There was no way he could simply look the other way and pretend none of this had happened. Suddenly, he remembered the requirements Boss Zhao had listed when looking for a nanny. The height, the weight, the blood type, the birth date, even the condition that she had to have been born naturally. He remembered the way Boss Zhao had looked at Xiaoyue during the interview. That greedy, almost inhuman gaze. As if he was not looking at a person at all. As if he was admiring an object. Then he thought of the room covered in yellow talisman paper, the 4 bronze basins in the corners, and the dreams Xiaoyue had described. Dreams that became clearer and clearer over time. Just as I was trying to make sense of it, Kai suddenly said that the part that chilled him the most was something he found out afterward. Through several twists and turns, he heard one more detail. It turned out that when Boss Zhao's grandson was born, the baby's health had been very poor. According to a hospital caregiver who had privately mentioned it to someone, the child had been born more than a month premature. He weighed just over 4 pounds. His heart and lungs had not developed properly. He stayed in an incubator for nearly 20 days. During that period, Boss Zhao was so anxious that his mouth broke out in sores. He pulled every string he could and invited several so-called experts in these matters to come to his home. And then, guess what happened? About 1 month after Xiaoyue started working in that house, the child's health began improving noticeably. By the time Xiaoyue escaped from Boss Zhao's home, people said the baby was no different from a normal infant. Plump, healthy, rosy-cheeked. He had not even caught a cold once. When Kai told me this, the peanut he had picked up with his chopsticks fell back onto the plate. He looked at me with a complicated expression and said, Don't you think that's strange? Xiao Yue's health got worse day by day, and Boss Zhao's grandson got better just as quickly. One side sank, the other side rose, like the beam of a scale. I said nothing after hearing that. Years ago, a feng shui master I knew through business once told me something. He said the most poisonous kind of setup in this world is never the kind with knives, blood, and open violence. It is the kind where you are being drained dry, yet you still think it is simply your own bad luck. Later, I told that feng shui master about Xiao Yue. After listening, he said only 2 words: life transference. According to him, this was not the kind of thing ordinary fortune tellers talk about casually. It was a deeply crooked practice. To put it simply, it meant transferring one person's health, fortune, and even lifespan onto another person. A ritual meant to siphon life from one body and pour it into another. He said that as far back as the Ming-Qing period, roughly 3 to 4 centuries ago, this sort of method had once been especially widespread. The rough idea was that some wealthy or powerful families would use different means to shift their misfortune, disasters, illness, or bad luck onto someone else. At the same time, they would draw that person's good fortune, health, and luck back onto themselves. When the matter involved the soul, the requirements became even stricter. The feng shui master said he once heard from a colleague in the South that if a formation like this was pushed far enough, then as the child grew older, it could create a kind of interaction between 2 souls. They called it interaction, but in reality, it was more like taking what was useful from one person and giving it to the other. It could make the child's spirit stronger. With the right kind of training afterward, the child's memory, cognition, and perception could all become far beyond ordinary people. He also said that this kind of practice was not originally meant to be evil. At first, it had belonged to a more orthodox branch of metaphysical arts, but over time, it became more and more twisted. People used it for selfish desire, for money, for power, for life itself. Some versions of the practice even circulated overseas and returned in a distorted form, each retelling more crooked than the last. The method, according to him, always began with finding the right vessel. The vessel had to be someone highly compatible with the target in certain ways: birth date, blood type, physical constitution. The more compatible the vessel was, the better the transfer would work. Even the exact requirements for height and weight were supposedly tied to calculations involving the 5 elements and the 8 trigrams, old Chinese systems used to map balance, direction, fate, and energy. Kai said that later, he went to confront Boss Zhao and demand an explanation. But Boss Zhao denied everything. He said Kai was talking nonsense. He even threatened to sue him for defamation. Kai had thought about calling the police, but what could he say? That someone had used a supernatural method to harm another person? Who would believe that? He had also thought about going to the media, but there was no hard evidence. If the story got out, people would only think he was insane. In the end, he had no choice but to swallow it. Xiao Yue did recover a little afterward, but she was never the same again. She could not do heavy work. She could not stay up late. If she got even slightly tired, she would fall ill. She never had that dream again, but she always felt as if there was an empty place inside her, as if something had been taken from her, something she would never get back. I asked the feng shui master, "Can Xiao Yue ever recover?" He was silent for a long time. Then he said, "Fate is easy to lend out, but hard to take back. I've already told Kai what rituals can still be done. As for the rest, that depends on time and heaven. Some people have their fortune taken from them like water poured onto the ground. Once it is gone, it can never truly be gathered back." That is why people who really understand these things never dare touch this kind of practice. It angers the heavens, and the karmic backlash can be devastating. But would someone like Boss Zhao care about backlash? Of course not. All he cared about was his grandson. As for whose daughter Xiao Yue was, or whether her entire life had been ruined, what did that have to do with him? For ordinary people, living a quiet, steady life is already a blessing. Do not chase things that were never meant to belong to you, because you never know what you might lose in the process. The scariest thing in this world was never ghosts. It was the human heart. No matter how powerful a ghost may be, it still needs a person to possess before it can do evil. But the human heart? When the human heart turns rotten, it does not need to possess anyone. It can do the cruelest things all by itself. All right, that is the end of today's story. Thank you all for listening. It is late now. The night has settled in. I wish you peace, safety, and a life untouched by evil.